We are in part 4. Now, what we're talking about here is this, that Jesus, when he came on earth, he wanted to teach us how to build a house, and the house is us, where when things happen in our life, we don't collapse. Right? And in order to do that, we are building our life. How are we building our life? In the way that we act, in the way that we choose, in the way that we think, in the way that we act today, not tomorrow. There are some people that were saying, you are today for the choices that you have done in the past. Okay? You're not now something that, if you feel in the loop or in that place where you shouldn't be, it's not because it's just happening randomly. It's because of the choice that you've done in the past, right? But there is still hope. You can still build, right? Now, the things that we talked about, that Jesus was teaching about how to build a house that doesn't collapse, is this. We talked about forgiveness. You see, it's something that is inside of us. Adultery. You need to stick with your wife, all right? Try to behave the way that you look at woman or man in general. Divorce. He was talking about the importance of, sticking together. Say the truth. It's important that we speaking truth to people. No white lies. People say, I have just a white lies. No, let's be honest and open to people, whatever it is. Number 5, offenses. If you have enemies, if people have done things wrong against you, again, leave them, set them free. Don't live with this burden inside of you. And then, as well, number 6, what are the motives behind your actions? In other words, why you do whatever you're doing. Okay? Why are you so close to your boss? You want to help because you are genuinely want to help people, or it's just because you want something, I can smile at you, I can look like an incredible person, but to be honest, what's behind it is just in my heart. I just know, and the Lord knows. So we should know. Right? We should think about why we're doing whatever we're doing. Number 7, learn to be a giver. Learn to be a giver. We need to be always ready to help people in need. We always need to be ready to say, I'm not just going to look at my own life, I'm going to look at the people outside. That's why we do the Saturday work, where we give free food. That is an exercise for us. To be givers, okay? There are people that they put their time in it. You don't know, probably you are watching movies or you are just eating outside, but there are people on a Friday night that they take the time to go and collect food, okay? Sometimes, I prefer men doing this job because, it's at night, and Alex, she said, what, if there are no men doing it, I am ready to do this. And I was like, really? She said, yes. And she's been doing that, helping, using what God has given to her, which is a car, all right, to use whatever you have to put it for the kingdom and to help, all right? So that's beautiful. And then when you are a giver, when you're a person that you're not worried to use what you have to help others, what happens is this. Jesus said, you don't have to be worried about anything. You don't have to be worried what you're going to eat. What are you going to wear? Where are you going to sleep? The Lord is going to provide. I know there are some people that are going through tough times, and what the Lord is saying is, I want to teach you to be a giver. Because when you start to give, the Lord is going to provide for you. All right? And this is a lesson that we all need to learn. It's not once, it repeats. Today, we're going to talk another principle. And it's about judging others. It's the importance where, I think everybody in this room have fallen into this. Judging others. Now, you see, until now, Jesus dealt with the spiritual life. Now he's going a little bit deeper. He's touching how we think and treat about others. And now, you see, in our community, in a place where you are friends, and this is a community where we actually are friends and brothers, we help each other. Do you know what happens? It can happen where you see people doing certain things, and it's very easy for us to judge others. Okay? When you're by yourself, you don't have anybody that's going to judge you. But when you live in a setting like this, it's very easy for us that we know, the people's lives. What happens is, it's very easy for us to condemn people and to say, all sorts of things. But let's see what Jesus says here. Matthew 7, chapter 1 to 5 says this. Do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when all the time there is a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. Right, the message today is going to be very simple, but I believe it touches all of us. I think for once in our life we have judged somebody. And let me tell you, it doesn't have to be far. You judge people in your family. You judge your husband. You judge your wife. You judge your children. You judge your mom, your dad. You judge people, and then in general. So it starts at home, and then it starts to spread out. And judging is maybe you don't think that much about it, but it can really destroy relationships. It can destroy what you've built with a person. And judging, it's something that we need to all pay attention, not to fall into this, because one day I can find myself in a situation where I messed up, but another day it's going to be you. So we need to be very careful how we interact with each other, how we see each other. Okay? In the church, you know how many times me as a pastor get judged? How many times people say, oh, but why you've done this? Why you've done that? And I try to explain, but what I want to say is, come here, put my shoes on, and you will see why. All right? As a pastor, I'm one of those people that actually I'm on the spot, because I take decisions and I can't make everybody happy, unfortunately. All right? So what happens is this. The secret is this, is to put yourself in the situation of the person and then start to look at it. Now, Jesus hates when people think they're more righteous than others. What happens is this. When I see you acting in some ways, what I do is start judging you and saying, you should have been doing this because... And what happens is you feel like you are better than somebody else. When you're judging what you're doing, you're saying to the person, you're not good enough. I'm better than you. That's the issue with judging. You say, I'm handling things better than you. What you're saying is, in your place, I would have done differently, even better. So judging is actually a big issue. It's a big issue because it brings pride, and we know pride brings distractions. You see, Jesus didn't command a universal acceptance of any lifestyle. What I'm talking to you is you can just do whatever you want. And I say, oh, it's okay, I shouldn't be judging. That's not what I mean, all right? We are called to show unconditional love, but not unconditional approval. Okay? Now, Romans chapter 2, verse 1 says this. You who pass judgment on someone else, for at whatever point you judge another, you are condemning yourself. Because you who pass judgment do the same things. Now Jesus' issue is this. You're judging the person, but you're doing exactly the same thing. When you say to somebody, you easily get angry. But actually the person is the same. You easily get angry. Right? Sometimes we just tell people off for who they are, but actually we are much worse than them. That's what Jesus is condemning. Okay? How can I come and speak to you in your life or give you some advice in your family when me as a first person I treat my family bad? How can I do that? If I mistreat my children or not pay attention, how can I come to you and say, you should do this and this and that with your kids? That's what Jesus was talking about. So when things happening in life, be careful what you say. And you need to be careful that you're doing it. Okay? As a pastor, for me, it's a difficult job. Because before going to somebody and saying, because we love corrections. I love, when people come and say, you should, I'm helping you to overcome this problem. But me as a pastor, I need to make sure that all the things in my life are in place. Because otherwise I can't come to you and say, sort this out. Right? So this is what Jesus was saying. Be careful not to judge, not to go heavy on people. Now, what Jesus was saying is this. Number one, deal with your issue first. Do you know what happens? And that's amazing. When something bothers you about somebody, this is a sign that you are actually doing the same mistake. Does it make sense? So if you... Let me give you an example that everybody falls into this. How many times you are driving? Sorry, Andrew. We are driving, okay? And somebody just does something dumb, and you start to be angry and upset. But after 2 seconds, you do exactly the same issue, the same problem. And when people beeps at you, you get angry because you said, why are you, but you've done exactly the same thing before. So actually, when you are angry at people, all right, for something that they do, firstly, it's something that bothers you first. It's something that starts from you, all right? So today, I want you to think differently now. Whenever something bothers you, I want you to look and say, am I that person as well? If something bothers you and says, all right, I don't know, I can find thousands of examples, but at work, let's say, my boss has been harsh with me, or my boss has been, mean to me, and you think for 1 second, say, would I do the same thing in that place? Well, am I that person actually that do exactly the same thing? Look at what Matthew 7:3 says. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? This is serious. You see, this is here Jesus is trying to be funny. In the Bible, when you see that things are exaggerated, Jesus was making a joke out of it, saying the truth. All right? Can you imagine now? You having a plank in your eye, trying to help your friends or your brother that has got a little, say, I don't know, there is a mosquito in my eye, and you have like a plank in your eye, you go and say, let me see if I can see. That's funny, that's crazy. How can you do that? Be careful first, actually care about your issue first, before going and helping somebody. Alright? That's why when people come here at the front and preach, their life needs to be, sorted first. Because you can't say things when you are not ready to do it first. Alright? Now, number 2, be careful of how you judge. Matthew 7:5, Jesus called people, "You hypocrites. First, take the plank out of your eye." You see, be careful, listen carefully, when you judge people at the low moment. Because, all of us, we make mistakes. All of us, we have our dark times. We all are vulnerable to things in life. And mostly, people make bad choices when they're at the lowest. They take some important choices in their life when they shouldn't take any choices. They just should say, all right, let me give a few weeks, let me just calm down, let me see if I sort it, and then I take steps. And what happens if we are outside and we see them doing some dumb choices, what we do, we just go and judge. Not seeing the issue. Why are they doing that? Why are they taking these choices? Why are they taking these actions? Sometimes it comes from history, from family histories, and they still do the same mistake, because sometimes, what we do as well. We hate what happened in our life. We hate what happened in our families, but it's like a loop. We're doing exactly the same thing. The very thing that we hate, we actually do. All right? I used to hate my father when he was screaming. And I found myself doing exactly the same thing. And I was saying, I would never do that to my children. And then I found myself, I said, oh my days, that's a replica of my father. Well, actually, somebody said to me, that sometimes you're like your father. I said, never. My dad now is a sweet. My dad, but in his youngest age, he was, he could scream. I could hear his voice very clear. Now, sometimes he still does it. And somebody told me like that, I was like shocked. I said, no, I hate that side of my dad. And then he was like, wow, somebody from outside told me that I was like my father. The very things that I hated, that part, now I'm doing the same thing. That's why judging is be careful what you say to people, because you might be that very person when you're judging. You see, you might judge somebody about a battle you might be facing next month. Right? It's easy to judge somebody's life when you're not going through the same thing. It's like you going through a test, a math test, and look at it and say, come on, it's easy. And you struggle and you're trying to do, you see that the person is struggling, and then when it comes my turn and I have to do it, I will struggle too. Right? So try to think this way. Matthew 7:5 says this, you hypocrite, first take the plank out of your own eye. It is the attempt to correct the fault of someone else when we ourselves are the same. Spurgeon, one of my favorite preachers, says this, Jesus is gentle, but he calls the man a hypocrite who fusses about small things in others and pays no attention to great matters at home in his person. How many times you struggle a lot with whatever thing you're struggling, all right? You know that you have flaws in your life, but you still feel in the position to judge your friend, to judge the very person that is close to you. And that you are just rising yourself above, thinking you are better than the person. My friend, don't do that. My brother, when something is bothering you, lower to the person and ask, why are you doing this? Communicate in a way that you're not fighting. You just need to understand why the person is reacting that way. And I'll give you one story of David. Do you remember David in the Bible? If you don't know the story, The Bible says he was one of the best kings ever that Jerusalem, Israel, ever had. But now he has done incredible mistakes. He cheated his wife. He went, he fell in love with a woman of a man, his best friend. And because she got pregnant, he killed the husband, the best friend. Wow, that is a lot in one day. In 1 week, he messed it up completely, right? Now, in those days, it wasn't just God coming, it was the prophet coming to him and saying, and he came with a story, and he said, King David, how are you? How are you doing? I said, yeah, not too bad. So that something happened. I want to give you an analogy, a story. And he was saying, there is one man who had 1,000 sheep, and there was another man who had just one sheep. And these men that had 1,000 took the only sheep that this person had, killed the man, and took the sheep. What would you do as a king to this person? Do you know what he said? He said, bring me that person, that I will kill him. He has to pay. And the prophet Nathaniel said, that man, it's you. You see, it's very easy for us to judge people on the very thing that we've done. So I want to leave you with this morning. That is going to sort out many of your arguments that you have in your family, at work, wherever you are. You don't undermine this. When you get upset for something, look at yourself first. Look at your life. See if you're doing that very thing. And don't just accept it. Don't just say, oh yeah, I'm doing it. No. Think properly. Think about that. It is a good thing to help your brother with his fault, but not before dealing with our first. James 4:11 says this, brothers and sisters, do not slander one another. One of the things that I hate, which can happen in church, is this. I have an issue with somebody, all right? I go and speak to somebody else, and I don't deal with the person. That's slandering. You're not giving the chance to the person to apologize, to explain the story, or whatever. And here James is saying, do not slander one another. An healthy environment in the church is when we love one another. We don't slander. If you have an issue, go and deal with the person and settle the matter here and there. Okay? And now I want to conclude with this. You know that Jesus sees your flaws. Jesus sees everybody's flaws. Not here. Nobody here can say, I'm better than somebody else. No, because I'm speaking here at the front. I'm a pastor, I can say, I'm better than you. Never. I can never say and do this. And do you know why I'm here, standing here? Because Jesus knows my gifting, but he knows my flaws. He knows where I fall down. Look what he says here. And I'll tell you the story here. Then Jesus said in Mark 14, 27, 31. Then Jesus said to them, it was right at the end. And Jesus said, all of you will be made to stumble because of me this night. So it's just right at the end, all right? Now, Jesus is foreseeing what is going to happen when, it's easy to stick with each other when everything is well. The problem is sticking to one another when, things bad happen in our life, okay? And Jesus said, I know that all of you you're going to stumble. And Peter said to him, even if all are made to stumble, yet I will not be. All right? So we see Peter just rising himself better than anybody else, saying, you can all fall. Can you imagine me telling you, oh guys, you can all fall, I will never fall. All right? You know what is funny? He was the only one falling. Okay? Even if we're all made to stumble. Jesus said to him, assuredly, I say to you that today, even this night before the rooster crows, twice you will deny me 3 times. But he spoke more vehemently. And he's saying, no, I will never do that. If I have to die with you, I will not deny you. Again, it's easy to talk when you don't go through stuff. It's easy to talk when you don't know what the person is walking. You don't know what the person is going through. It's easy to say that. And they all said likewise. They all said, I will never do that. You see, you are in a dangerous position where you think you can be better than others. Really dangerous position. We all go through tests. Sometimes we fail, we fall, and we mess up. But God is looking for these types of believers. Look at James 5:19-20. Whoever turns a sinner from the error of their way will save them from death and cover over a multitude of sins. This church is not called to judge, guys. This church is called to help people. Alright? We are not a church when we see people falling down, people that we know very well, to just say, oh, you know what, just live your own way. You're not listening. Go. No, we are there and we should in love still love them and do anything to get them back. You see, Jesus looked at Peter with this great potential, because Jesus saw in Peter an incredible potential, but also see his great mistakes. Jesus sees you. You see, with all the potential that you have, with all the gifting that you have, but he still sees your mistakes. You see, he gets all the package. He gets you as you are, all in it. And Jesus knows that when he chooses you, he takes the good and the bad. He takes both. Do you know how many people they say, I'm not going to church, I'm not going to serve because I'm not good enough? Do you know when you're going to be good enough? In heaven. We have to kill you for you to be good enough. Alright? But until you're here, it's not going to happen. Alright? And one of the most amazing things, I want to ask you to answer to God. We're going to pray. Is this. Do you know why mainly we shouldn't be judge others? Because the one that could have judged, he didn't. Jesus came on earth, he said, not to judge, but to save those who were lost. You see, once you were lost, maybe you still are lost. You see? And Jesus doesn't look at your past, doesn't look what you're going through right now. He doesn't look at the dumb choices that you're making, even though, unfortunately, you're paying for it. Because the bad choices is not just for Jesus. Jesus will forgive you. People don't. Alright? So there are certain times that when you choose to do the bad things, sometimes people, they won't welcome you. But the one that could have judged you, he didn't. And he doesn't. And we still have time, guys. We still have time. This is the time of salvation, says the Bible. This is the time right now where, you need to sort your life out. This is the day. Let's all stand up. And I want to ask you just to close your eyes. There isn't anything mystical by closing your eyes. It's just for you that you can concentrate.